You are watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels and networks. I'm Mike Morales, sweltering here in San Antonio. That gentleman out there is
Eric Zandona in Vancouver, Washington, and pleasantly cool.
you lucky man. Jeez. Uh, Eric and I keep kidding Eric because we keep throwing unusual stuff at his palate, and he keeps like, he wants all the exotic flavors. And today, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you're watching us or listening, we are going to try a brand new brand of Bacanora called Batuq.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for those of you who are watching us and listening to us in Arizona and points in between, maybe little parts of New Mexico also, we have listeners all over the world, or even Germany for that matter. Batuq, this particular Bacanora is coming out of Sonora.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank Michael Hurley of Borderland Spirits, who made all this possible. You find it primarily right now in Arizona, and if you're watching us or listening to us right now, we're taping this in the middle of May, so we're still under quarantine. However, Borderland Spirits launched in January, February, and then in March came to a screeching halt. So,
a lot of things.
Yeah, like a lot of things, folks. We get it. However, we have been social distance drinking since 1999, so there we go. We're going to pour some first. We're going to give you some descriptions, and then we'll fill you in on some of the ins and outs. This is, again, a beautiful spirit from Sonora, Bacanora. It is agave pacifica, or yaquiana, as they call it. Eric kind of filled us in a little bit on Batuq as far as it's a very hyper local distillate from Sonora. It is a type of mezcal, but this particular, the hand of the maker, it really makes a big difference. And now, what was the difference between the Batuq? This is called Batuq Reserva de la Casa.
Mm-hmm. So this one, so the Reserva is using slightly older agaves. So in the standard Blanco, the agaves, they estimate, are between like 8 and 12 years old. For these, their estimate is that the agaves are between 10 and 20 years old. And one of the really interesting things that they're doing is a process called capon, which is in a lot of places, whether it's in Oaxaca or in Jalisco, right? The farmers are out in the fields, and they have a sense of when plants are ripe. They're not just looking for when the quiote starts to rise. So often agaves will be harvested before the quiote starts to form, because they have a sense of when things are mature. But with capon, what they do is they wait for the quiote to start growing, and then they cut it off. And we were talking off camera about how there's some variety in how people do that. Some people will use a metal blade. Some, as you said, you saw people had lassoed the quiote and then basically pulled it off with a horse. And what that does is it basically halts the growing process for the quiote, but the plant continues to kind of like enrich the sugars. And so for the Reserva, they're only using capon agaves, but they're leaving those agaves in the ground for a year or 2 years before they're harvesting them, which to me is like, I've heard of people doing it for a couple of months, but 2 years is the longest I've ever heard of before. Yeah. So they're really, these are select agaves.
These are when you're talking about hand selected, and right off the bat, Eric, it smells differently. It smells the cheesy smell that we got in the first Blanco is not there. It's not very prominent.
No, there's a touch of it, but it's I'd say way more herbal. To me, there's like a lot more like oregano, something like that you're getting on the aroma. There's just a touch of that lactic character, but it's just really, really lovely.
Now, would you say that the not only are we getting a lot of herbal, but I'm beginning to take I'm beginning to sense more of the citrus notes
Yeah,
that you sensed in the original Blanco. I
yeah,
think they're more prominent here. It's more
yeah,
herbal with the citrus notes and
yeah.
less lactic.
Yes, yes, I agree. Yeah, there's a real nice like acidic kind of fruit character in this, which is to me it's a little bit like fresh squeezed orange juice or slightly orange blossom, but and then mixed with this like herbal oregano or some thyme, not quite thyme, but something in that kind of
Not
herbal
not
family.
sage, right? Sage.
No,
No.
but really nice. And then at the very back, at the very bit, there's just this little bit of lactic character.
Have you ever had lemon oregano?
I've had lemon basil, but not. I don't
Lemon
think I've ever had.
basil. That's it.
Yeah,
Lemon basil. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I haven't shopped I haven't shopped at a Trader Joe's in so long. That's where I've had it.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
lemon basil.
yeah.
We got to dive in because this just smells beautiful. Mm. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. So this is bottled at 50.3% ABV, and it's so soft, so packed full of flavor. There's like zero heat and burn. I mean,
No.
I've had 80 proof bourbons that have just like lit my mouth on fire. This is so just wonderful and flavorful, and there's a lot of herbaceousness. There's a lot more of that menthol character that I mentioned, not the flavor as much as that warmth that you get. Yes.
Wow. This. You know what's really interesting is that this Bacanora, just to give you a little bit of the history, it has a 300-year history in Sonora. It was during Prohibition. It was it was clandestinely distilled, and then there was Mexico went through its own prohibition where the vinateros, who we would call mezcaleros, and they were in Sonora, they're called vinateros, were they were up in the hills. A lot of this was clandestine because they were being killed for producing this stuff. And yet, Eric, I got to tell you, this is one of the most elegant, fine, refined spirits. It's got that. It has that prohibition, Mexican moonshine, up in the hills kind of mystique, but it's not that. It really isn't. It's not. It's not the stuff they were drinking on Justified. It's don't drink the apple pie. This stuff is so refined.
Yeah.
It's even hard. And you and I have had several of mezcals as well. There are mezcals that are not this refined. That's not this. It's just a different style. But what I'm saying is, I'm so impressed by the refinement with the rustic tools that these guys are using.
Yeah. Well, I can understand why they call it Reserva de la Casa, right? If you're going to drink the good stuff, you're going to drink it at home.
Yeah, this was never meant for your lips.
Yeah, sell everybody the other stuff.
Yeah.
Let's keep this.
My dad used to have a saying that when you were making stuff for sale, you say, "Oh, este es para la venta." This is for sale. The good stuff's in the back, So
yeah.
Oh my goodness, and it's just there is so much structure and mouthfeel. It's just I there's no way I would put this in a cocktail. We talked about that off camera. There's no way. This is definitely a sipper, but you're going to be surprised. Don't be put off. First of all, don't judge it by its bottle. Don't judge it by the cover, or even by the alcohol by volume. Yeah. It is such a refined spirit. It's beautiful.
Yeah. The suggested retail for this is somewhere in like the high 80s, low 90s. It's worth it. It's totally worth it.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of you're seeing a lot of artisanal mezcal coming out right now in the market in the like 110s, 120s and higher. And this stuff is fantastic. And the amount of work and time that went into this, I think it's easily worth it.
Oh, absolutely. If you're again, if you're a seasoned mezcal pro, you look for those high proof tequilas. If you got if you have an adventurous palate, don't be put off by the ABV on this because it really really goes down very well. It's I'm surprised how approachable these two have been. That's one of my favorite words now. And instead of rough and smooth, it's approachable. You really because what happens with mezcal, what we've been seeing a lot of mezcals is they're coming in at what I consider gateway mezcals. They're coming in at 80 proof.
Yeah,
that's just to introduce people to, and not that they're not lovely brands because a lot of them are at 80 proof. They're just gorgeous. But I gotta say, I'm so impressed by the refinement of this this Bacanora. You're not going to have any problem getting used to a really great Bacanora. This is let me give you the region and stuff. We'll give you some ins and outs. I think the material that we got from Borderland Spirits says again these are Capon. The maestro vinatero is Rafael Quijada. And capon means castrated, or as we discussed, when the quiote is either broken off or sliced off. Wow, it's called Reserva de la Casa. It's really complex. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Let me give you the region too, because I think that's going to be. I think it's going to be a big thing, like it is with mezcal. The region here is, let's see. It's San Pedro de la Cueva, and these are over 4 generations of tradition, and continued by Rafael Adalberto Encinas Molina and his sons. So you have the growers, and then you have the maestro vinatero, who is Rafael Quijada. So you have a couple of families working in unison to produce this, and it makes sense to me because you have a grower who, as you said, these guys have a sense of when some of these are ready, and where they're ready, and then you bring those products to your maestro vinatero, and this is what he's working with, and I got to tell you, wow, wild yeast. The water source is local spring. Wild yeast is used for natural fermentation, double distilled with a mesquite-fired stainless copper still. It's gorgeous, ladies and gentlemen. This is, I think you'll agree with me, Grand Prix nominee, and they're so different. These have to be given their separate. I can't even separate these by ABV. They're just going to have to be separated. I think by region and what they are, because this one is again completely different flavor profile than the original Blanco. The original Blanco has a lot. I think the original Blanco, for me, I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, was probably easily paired with foods like olives and cheeses, whereas this one is just a really good sipper. This is just one on your back porch. It's lovely. It's just lovely. Again, our thanks to Borderland Spirits for making this happen. You're going to find these right now in Arizona, but hopefully they'll be able to make it down to Texas, and South Texas needs to be looking for these because, oh my God, these are outstanding. Anything else you want to add to this, Eric?
I mean, one of the interesting technical points about it that I think is really contributing to the suaveness of the spirit is that after distillation, they say they let it rest for 2 months in stainless steel. It wouldn't surprise me for the Reserva if they're doing it for longer. Because there's a lot of spirits that have a tradition of letting it rest after distillation, and you get a real refinedness in the quality of and texture of the spirit and the alcohol, even at higher ABVs. So there's a lot of thought that's going into these. So it's really great stuff.
It's worth every penny. I think you said it was somewhere in the mid 80s to high
high 80s, low 90s in that region.
Really it's worth every penny because it's beautiful. And again, Borderland Spirits wants to make sure that it's sustainable, not just for the importer, for Michael Hurley, but also for the people in the community. I think he and his company are very much sticklers for presenting the culture of Bacanora culture, as opposed to the commercialized, romanticized, moonshine kind of thing. It's more, how much of this is going back to the producer and fair trade and things like that. So kudos to him and his company. And that's not an easy deal, folks.
Yeah.
Because there's not a whole lot of money in that either, so we appreciate that. Yeah. Stick with us though. That's our take on Batuq, but we're gonna go explore another brand of Bacanora. I can't wait to try this one from another family, from another region. So stick with us. I'm Mike Morales here in San Antonio. That gentleman out there is
Eric Zandona in Vancouver, Washington.
You have been watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels. Please subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so that every time we upload an Eric Zandona video, you're notified right there in your hot little phone. Download us on your podcasting, wherever it is, iTunes, Spotify. But whatever you do, tomar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.